Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. I'm so happy you're here with me because in today's episode, I'm taking some of the faux tin tiles from Dollar Tree and I'm making some beautiful Christmas tree ornaments out of them. I'm going to do a couple of techniques that give them a very aged and vintage look. I also have these paper ornaments that I create using vintage graphics. They're so easy to make and they make such an impact. I'm also going to add a couple of little vintage touches to them to really take them over the top. I also have this Dollar Tree tray that has sat in my stash forever, and I finally take it out and give it a beautiful makeover. I add some different embellishments to it, give it a couple of different painting techniques to really bring home that vintage look, and even add something really fun into the center to make it super Christmassy. I hope you stick around and see how all of these projects turn out. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you do like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some DIYs. I really love using these faux pressed tin sheets from Dollar Tree, and I'm just taking some scraps that I have from other projects I've used that I've cut shapes out of, and so I just hang on to those because you never know when you're going to need to use them, and this was the perfect time for me to get into all of my scraps here. So I have this Christmas tree shape that I have from, these came from Dollar General, and you place them together and make some 3D trees, but I mean you could print something out and cut it. If you can freehand, you could do that. I tried to freehand it and it was an absolute disaster. So I reached into my stash and grabbed these to trace out a Christmas tree shape. But I want to make some pressed tin looking ornaments. And you can see here that I just added a cute little stump to the end of the tree, so that'll kind of be a little detail there. So I mean, use your imagination, and there's so many possibilities that you could do with different shapes other than just Christmas trees. This is just what I'm doing in this video, but I mean, how cute would some cute little stockings be, or even just some traditional ornament shapes, some angels, they would all be beautiful. So I cut 4 out. They're all 4 different sizes. I have go from like largest down to smallest, and I'm just going to do a couple coats of some white paint for my base. I feel like white paint is a good base to use because anything you add, if you add color or anything else or age it on top of that, white is the best place to start. So I just give these, it takes about 3 coats each side to get the coverage that I want. At the beginning of this Christmas crafting season, I bought this patina kit. Mine came from Hobby Lobby, but I know there are a lot of other brands and a lot of craft stores will probably carry this exact thing here. I bought it when it was on sale, so I didn't really pay full price for it, but it's been really fun to kind of experiment with. So it comes with like the patina spray, you get a primer, and then you get a copper paint. And you have to do it in the steps that you want to follow your instructions for whatever kit you use because it creates a reaction to have a natural patina. So for my kit, I start with the primer and I prime the front and back of all of my trees, let that dry completely, and you do 2 coats, and then I can add on the copper on top of that. And so now I'll go through and add the copper on the front and the back of each of these. And I think it said to do 2 coats of this also, which is what I do. So just read your instructions of what you do. But I mean, even just like this, I think this copper color is absolutely just a beautiful color. But there's something in the paint that's going to create a reaction when you spray it with the patina. And so that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm really going for a vintage look here. I wanted these to look like they were a pressed tin that had been painted over and then aged. Maybe paint had flaked off. So I'm going with a messy coat of white paint. This is going to help that raised portion of these little, it's faux tin, but for some reason in my head I keep wanting to call it actual tin. But you're just going to go over that raised portion of these tiles. Let's call them tiles. There we go. And it's just going to reveal that beautiful design, but I don't want full coverage of the white paint because I do want that copper color to show through. Now my intent was I was going to spray these and that copper was going to age, and it was going to age into a beautiful like patinaed bluish greenish color. So you can see that I'm just using a little bit of a heat tool to help that paint dry. I do recommend using a heat tool on these if you have them because it helps the edges of this faux tin kind of curl a little bit. It kind of melts it and not kind of, I mean it does, but it helps it have a look like it's actual tin, not cut out of plastic. So here I'm spraying the patina spray, and I immediately notice that it's the paint that starts to have a reaction, not necessarily the copper. I don't know if it was because it was on plastic. I don't know if it was just the nature of the chalk paint, but I actually really liked how it came out. And you can kind of see some of these, it even yellowed in some areas, almost like rusty look. I just think in the back, I don't know if it's because they were laying on the back because I sprayed them too. And so I don't know if that just didn't, but I mean, they're going to be hanging on my tree, so you won't see that as much. But if you don't have the patina spray, maybe use some green paint too. That might give you the same effect. So you can use a hole punch, but I felt like that punch was way too big. I don't have any smaller hole punches than just the standard one. So I'm using my Crocodile, just the one of the settings on that, to cut a little hole in the top of each of these. And then I'm just going to take some twine and I loop it, and I'm just putting the loop from the front part of the tree to the back. And then I will pull that loop out, and you can see how I do that right here. And then I'm just going to put my fingers through and pull the excess, the tails through there. And that gives you a nice finished look on there instead of tying it off, just putting one end through and tying it, because then your tree doesn't hang facing outward, and you want your ornaments to show through your tree. So I particularly like this method to help your ornaments hang the correct way. Now I just cut those tails down after tying a knot in there, and I just kind of rough up that twine to give it more of an intentional look rather than it having just be like, I mean, if these have been aged, you kind of want them to look like they've been around for a minute or two. So now I am just tying all of them, and I will lay them on top of each other, and I will match up the hole size, and I'm just going to tie the ends of the twine so they match. So for instance, if you were going to sell these or give these away, you want your lengths to be the exact same and your knots to kind of fall in the exact same length. But look at how beautiful these look. Again, my tree is not up yet. It is October when I made these, so I just have this little bit of garland to show these to you on. But I mean, look at those colors. They are so beautiful. I feel like I want to go make like 10 more and have them all over my tree. I would love to know your thoughts on this process, if this is something you would try, if you liked how these turned out, because they exceeded my expectations so much with how they turned out, and I'm very, very pleased with them. Today's video is part of a fun Christmas collaboration. What that means for you is pinned in my comments or in my description box is a link to the playlist. You'll be taken right over to watch all of these very talented ladies and their Christmas creations that they have made for you. I am joined today by Liana with Liana DIY, Nadia from DIY with Nadia, Lori from Lori Bly DIY, and Yelena from DIY Next Door. Remember to click that link and you'll be taken right over there, but let's get right back into our DIYs. I really love the look of vintage paper ornaments, so I cut all of these designs out with my cutting machine. If you have a die cut, you could use that. They sell shapes like this at the craft store in the scrapbook section that you could get. You could even cut them by hand. Whatever you would like. You don't even have to necessarily do this part. I just love the trim and the edge that this adds to the ornament. So I want them to look really distressed and really aged. So I'm just wrinkling all of the paper, putting lots of crinkles in there. And then you could do a couple of things to distress and age these. You could put them in some tea or coffee to dye them that way. I have these distressing inks that I picked up at JoAnns years ago. They do sell them at Hobby Lobby, I've seen. You can get them on Amazon. But I'm just rubbing the ink pad directly onto my background here, onto these little cutout shapes. And then I'm using a darker color that will help all of those little wrinkles and crinkles pop, so it really hits home that aged vintage look. And I just go over front and back and make sure that everything is really covered good. Now I'm taking some water, just my mister bottle, and I'm spraying that all over to give an even different element of the aged look to them. So you can see how they look there. It makes that ink run a little bit. It makes little water spots appear. It really makes it look like these have just been sitting in the attic for decades upon decades, and that's exactly what I'm going for. The hardest part of this whole project is finding the graphics that you want to use. Now, I searched and searched through the Graphics Fairy's website, which she has amazing graphics. So I'll leave the link to her website down in my description box. I created one of these using a couple of different images and some things in Canva that I did. So I can leave a link to that if you want to print that out. And some of them did come from Canva. I just printed a bunch of different images. You could easily use Christmas cards, old postcards that you picked up like at the thrift or vintage antique store, anything like that you would like to use. But it is just very easy to hop online and look for some vintage graphics and just do it that way. So I'm just using my trusty Elmer's school glue. This is just the purple glue stick on the back. I will lay that down and center it on each of the designs, and then I'm just going over with my brayer to make sure that I get those pieces bonded together really well. Now I'm going to take some Mod Podge and put this over. This is going to seal and coat these. You do want to make sure that your ink is completely dry. I did print these out with an inkjet printer, so I left them overnight to dry completely before putting the Mod Podge on the front and the back. Now I've seen with some of these vintage paper ornaments, they use like the tinsel or the silvery kind of pipe cleaner here. I thought it would be really fun to add these. These just came from the Dollar Tree, and I was hesitant at first, but I really like the way that they look. So I'm just going to put a thin row or bead of hot glue and just kind of work in sections so I don't have a lot of hot glue seeping out. I don't want these to look like they were homemade or kind of like, I just want them to look high end and like something you could sell at a craft fair or in like a craft show or something, like a cute little store. I have seen these in some of the stores that I've gone into in my travels that they sell ornaments like this for a lot of money. So I was kind of going for that vibe here, but I think selling a set of these, if you're into that or that's something you're looking for, would be a great idea and a great addition to your booth. If you're not into selling things or don't want to sell them, they would just be a great addition to your decor or to your tree, or a great gift for somebody who maybe decorates with more of this vintage feel. So again, I'm just lining up the pipe cleaner. They weren't long enough to go around each one time, so I had to add a little bit onto each one. So I would just take a little bit here, you can see, and I will glue that on and then just cut off the excess. So just showing you on these square ornaments, I don't do like a hard corner on them. I kind of do a more rounded corner with the pipe cleaner there. I just use my finger to kind of have it go around that. So that way it has kind of a more natural look to it. So just pointing that out. But I just think these are looking so cute. And I love, this reminds me of an old postcard. And it's so beautiful, and I just love how the little silver flecks of the pipe cleaner just add an extra little sparkle and detail. But I'm going to add a little bit of extra sparkle to these as well. Some of these ornaments that I have seen have had a little bit of glitter added. I'm just doing a little bit of it. This is totally optional. I know glitter's not everybody's thing, but I'm just going like, for instance, on Santa's little trim on his coat and his hat, maybe on his little arm cuff there, and just putting a little bit of Mod Podge. And then I'm just going to pour some glitter over the top of that. Now I'm just using the cheap Walmart glitter that I bought at Walmart. I don't even know what brand it is, but it was just like the only kind of glitter that Walmart had in their craft section. So nothing super special. So you can see it's just a little bit of sparkle to take it to the next level, make it a little bit extra. And some of them don't have a lot of like Santa's trim, for instance. And so I would just pick some random toys to have a little bit of sparkle on, just somewhere where it would naturally look like it would glisten or something. And I just shake that around, as you can see here, and then just tap off the excess glitter. On this one right here, there was a lot of snow. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of add that. You're just going for, you don't want it over the top. You're just going for something to take it to the next level, have it look a little bit more high end than just leaving it plain as it was. It would be fine to leave it that way. However, it's just a matter of personal preference. I just feel like the ornaments like this that I have seen do have a little bit of the glitter and sparkle like this, so I thought it would be fun to add that touch as well. You can see how it's just a little bit, but it really does just make it so much more beautiful. And these images are beautiful, and they would be so fun to do so many different projects with, not just the ornaments. Now I need a way to hang these, and so I'm just using my Crop-A-Dial. You can see here it's like crop, C-R-O-P. I'll leave a link to this down in my description box. I use this for a lot of different crafts. It was very much a game changer. It originally is meant to do grommets with, and I usually use it to punch holes in different things, but I'm going to show you here how you do the grommet. Is it comes with these, and you can buy them also at the craft store, but you just place them on the main like mouth part of this, and when you stick your ornament in, you just want to make sure it's facing the correct way, so the bent part of the grommet will be in the back, and you just push it down, and you can see how that just adds, rather than just having a hole punched in there, it gives such a finished look to it. So I just continue on and do this to all of them, and I go with that kind of brassy, like aged brass color, because I felt like that would really hit home that vintage style. But you can see you just clamp that down, and it creates that beautiful finish on there. I'm just taking some regular twine here, and I'm going to feed that through each of the ornaments. So I just bend it over, and I take the loop and feed it from the front of the ornament to the back. So I will just push that through and grab that. And then you'll just take the excess tails and pull them through. You can see I missed one there, so I'm just going to pull that other one through. And this is such a finished look rather than just tying it off on the ornament. I love that when you do this, it makes the ornament face outward, and so it doesn't like turn to the side on your tree at all, or wherever you're going to place this. And then I just looped it to tie a knot in the top, and I'm just cutting off the tails now. And I just want, you don't want the tails to be too long, but I do kind of just go put my thumbnail and my finger over them to kind of fray them just a little bit. For some reason, I feel like that just gives it a little bit more of a high-end look to it, rather than having it be so crisp and looking like it was just barely cut with the scissors. Like, it gives it kind of a warm feel. I don't know how to explain it, but you can kind of see what it does. So it's just a matter of if you like that or not. Now I'm just doing the same with each of the other ornaments, but what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I'll place them on top of one another to make sure that the hanging tassel, or not the tassel, but the twine, that it's all the same length. So that way, if you were to display these somewhere, they're all hanging at a similar level. You don't want one being super short and one being super long. It just gives it more of a clean look. I am just in awe of all 4 of these together displayed like this. I mean, one is absolutely beautiful on its own, but to have a collection like this hanging on your tree, I just think these are going to be so beautiful. Now, as of when I made these, it was October, so I don't have my tree up. So this is the best that I can do to show you with these hanging from a garland here. I'll have to show some pictures of them hanging on my tree once that's all up and decorated. But I just feel like these are such a beautiful addition. I mean, would you love getting these as a gift if someone made them for you? Or would you purchase these at a craft bazaar or something? I just feel like they're beautiful, and what a fun touch to add to your Christmas decor. This little silver tray from Dollar Tree has sat in my stash for a very long time, and I've never really known what to do with it, but I actually have the perfect idea. I feel like you'll have to let me know. So I'm just painting the front and the back completely with 2 or 3 layers of chalk paint and just a neutral color. And I have this stamp. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby in case you're wanting to pick one up similar to it. I know there's a lot of different companies that make a script stamp, so it just looks like writing. And I just rubbed my black ink pad all over it, and I'm just going to press it down. This is just the front part of the tray, so like the serving part. Now this is going to be a decoration. It's not going to be for food or anything. You'll see why here as we go along. But you can see that I just kind of place that in different directions on there. And even though there's like a gap missing somewhere, totally fine. I even go in and fill in some of the other little areas with some different directions. It all looks fine in the end. At first I was like, ooh, what did I do? But what you want to do now is, after that ink has a minute to kind of set, I'm spraying it with my mister bottle, and you can see it's making the ink run everywhere. I'm just going to wipe that off with a paper towel because it's just going to tone that ink back. That chalk paint has already grabbed onto the initial part of that ink, so it's, because it's so porous, it's holding on to that, but I'm just wiping off the excess ink. Stick with me because I know you're going to love how this ends up looking. So I take some Crackle Medium, and I am just putting that onto the front part of my tray. You just want to make sure that you get a decent coverage, a good coat on there, and then you want to follow the instructions of your Crackle Medium. This is Folk Art, but there's several different types on the market that you can use. Just make sure you're following your instructions, letting it dry completely. So now that it's dry, you're going to take your paint that you want as your top coat. I'm choosing the same color as my base coat, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. You may think that's not the point of Crackle, but you'll see how it turns out. You just don't want to go over areas that you've been, because you can disturb that process that's happening of the crackle. So if you do it early on before that paint starts to set, because you can definitely do that. And if you've seen me in any of my other videos, you know I've learned that from experience. So you can kind of see how it's starting to crackle there. You can see a little bit of that script coming through, just a very subtle touch. And I take a wet paper towel or a baby wipe with some antiquing wax, just a water-based antiquing wax. I use Waverly, but you can use any kind that you would like as long as it's water-based. And I'm just wiping this all over that crackle. So that's going to settle down into all of those crackled areas and really make those pop. I didn't want to have like a lot of different colors on this to do the typical crackle style. You can even see I'm spraying it with my mister bottle there, and I'm just going to rub the excess off of the top, because I really just want all of those cracks that we created to absorb that antiquing wax. Now I didn't place the crackle medium on the edge of the tray because it had this lovely detail that I figured I could distress much more easily doing this. So I'm just putting a little bit of the antiquing wax all the way around the edge of the tray, and then I will just take a paper towel or baby wipe and wipe it back so it goes down into all the grooves, and then you're wiping away the top to reveal that design. Now look at how cute this Santa ornament is. I picked that up at Walmart this year, so check and see. I was at my Walmart the other day again and they had tons of them. And I'm just taking some IOD Christmas molds. Now you definitely don't have to use this. I just had a lot of you say that you have purchased these and you were excited to see what I did with them. But I think if you were to use some buttons or even some actual greenery to do this with, there's so many different possibilities. But I'm just placing my air dry clay into my mold here, and I'm using actually my Cricut tool here. This actually works really well to scrape off the excess clay. As you can see here, you can kind of cut into it. I can use it to get into the edges. So there's a little hack for you that I kind of accidentally discovered. I was kind of looking for something to scrape that off with and went, that's perfect. So the little spatula tool works great. Now, once you have this all pushed in, you're going to turn your mold over and you're just going to release it by bending it and working very slowly, just kind of grabbing onto it and helping it drop out of there. You're not pulling, you're just kind of helping it to fall out of there. I've heard some other creators doing like where they put it into the freezer for a little bit to harden it a little bit more. There's lots of different methods, but I have not had a trouble doing it this way. As you can see, it takes a minute here. It's kind of a slow process to get that all out, but once it starts falling, gravity just kind of takes over. You can see I kind of have to help it just a little bit there, just a little nick there to get it to completely have gravity take over and fall out. And so you can kind of see where I'm going to place these on here. I but I end up casting 2 of these to go on both corners on the top of my Santa, and then I move on to do some for the bottom. Now what I did is I casted a shorter one. I just didn't bring my clay all the way down to the bottom of my mold because I wanted, you can see that my tray is not big enough to do a full one on the bottom. And so what I end up doing is I end up tearing away part of the mold here, and I'll take some clay and I will go and cast the bottom part only so I can have that finished look like it really is the true edge to my bows there. So you can see I just put it into the bottom part and pull that out. And even when I match that up, I think, oh, I need to pull a little bit of this away. So you just tear it off and you're just going to place it on there and see how that looks. Now we have to adhere these. So how do we do that? I've heard wood glue works, and so that's what I'm going to try. So I just placed some wood glue on the back. My clay is still wet at this point, so it is I can manipulate it very well, bend it to where I need to, but I'm just using my finger to spread that wood glue all over. And so that way I can get all of those tiny little pieces and everything and make sure that I put a decent amount on there that it's going to hold. And again, just spread that out with my finger, and then I just place that down. And since it is wet, I can kind of still move it, bend it, and that way get it positioned exactly how I want it. I do this to all of my pieces, and then I let this sit overnight to dry. You can see how beautiful it looks. And there was one little area that cracked, but that's okay. It just adds to that vintage look, and we're going to paint over it. So really the paint does kind of, if you have just minimal cracking like that, the paint kind of goes into there and fills that space in. But I'm just going to paint these the same as the base color of the tray. So in this case, it was just kind of a white or neutral color. And then I'm going to age it so it looks like it belongs on here. So I'm just getting a brush with some antiquing wax and getting into all of those little tiny grooves. And this mold from IOD has so much detail that it really is a lot that antiquing wax goes down in and grabs onto to reveal so much detail. And you can see I'm just wiping it away with a baby wipe here, just getting all of that excess antiquing wax off as much as I can anyway with my baby wipe. And then I will go back in with a little bit kind of like a dry brushing and hit all of the high points of these bows. And then also kind of, you can see I'm getting into the edge there just to kind of clean it up a bit and make it look a little bit more like it was just aged and dirt had just fallen in there. So this is the finished product. I love it. I think it looks great. So it's just a matter of personal preference of what style you like. Now I'm going to place my Santa head on here like this Santa ornament. I just unscrewed the little hanging thing from the top of him, and I'm just using some E6000. I'm just going to let this sit so I don't use any hot glue, but you definitely could if you need that instant hold, but I was just going to be letting this sit again for a while to cure and dry, so I just used the E6000, and I just centered it on there. And I just think this has such a beautiful like Victorian look almost. I don't know. This Santa ornament really just spoke to me, and I thought this tray and that worked really well together, and it was such a fun way to use those molds. But again, use your imagination if you don't have them. Definitely don't worry about that. Like I said, some buttons would be so beautiful there. Some actual greenery that you glued onto there would be beautiful. Even leaving it plain, that edge on that tray is beautiful as is. There's so many different possibilities. So just use what you have, and I'm sure yours is going to turn out absolutely beautiful. I am so pleased with how everything came out. I just love how these ornaments all turned out. It was so fun doing these vintage graphics on the ornaments and adding all of those little embellishing touches to them, the glitter and the tinsel, to give them that really vintage feel. I just love them. I want to make like 10 more to go on my tree. I'm so excited to put it up and see how all of these look together. I also love the way that paint reacted with that patina spray on these the faux tin trees. I think they're going to be a beautiful addition as well. And this Santa tray, I just feel that it's such a fun vintage vibe. It almost has a Victorian feel to me. I just think it's elegant. It looks aged. I loved that Santa face. It's going to be such a great addition to my Christmas decor. Remember to check out that playlist link that's in my description box or pinned it in my comments. Say hello to all of the other creators. If you're coming from the playlist, I hope you enjoyed what I had to offer today. I would love if you would consider subscribing if you liked any of the projects that you saw. But I'll see you next time, you guys. Have a wonderful day. Happy crafting! If you liked the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.